Larry, how are you, buddy? Wow, I wanted to talk to a trend trader here.
Dale, good morning.
In
How
a
are you?
good, buddy. Action we haven't seen in many years. Um, I know you're mainly a trend trader. Tell me how you handled this 20% correction in S&Ps and almost 30 or more in NASDAQ over the last few months.
Yeah, it's been a tough market. You can see my screen, right?
Got it, buddy.
So it's been a tough market, and part of what the challenge has been is just been the speed of the breakdown. The
Yeah,
S&P's down what 15% off the highs, and I think at the low it was down about
20.
20%. And
Yeah.
that move happened in less than 2 months. And in 2022, I think that move took, 6 or 8 months. So it's just been a really fast breakdown. You've got to be really nimble. I had a bunch of stops that got hit on some things. And but I've got stuff that's been working like gold and gold miners. So it's really just trying to right now limit the drawdown. So I've got a lot more cash than I usually have. I've got some triple Q index puts, which I probably haven't had in, at least 3 years. So it's been a tough market. There's no doubt.
Okay. So let me ask you, when I used to raise money for CTAs, Larry, to me, a lot of people look at the performance, only look at those numbers. To me,
Right.
what was important was how the money manager handled drawdowns.
Right.
Okay, what were the draw? Did you go through a drawdown during this kind of a
Oh, of course.
7 week bear market?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Anyone who didn't go through a drawdown, they did quite a good job. But yeah, I had a lot of really long-term positions that I had for like 2 years, like Nvidia, Facebook,
yeah.
Triple Q. So, because I'm a trend follower, like you said, I've been holding those positions for quite a while. So yeah, I went through some drawdown in a lot of those positions.
Okay. What your model account? What kind of hit did it take?
The drawdown off the highs, I'm probably down 12 to 15% off the highs right now.
Less than the market.
Well,
That's what
yeah, a
I
little
thought.
bit less than the market. And like I
Yeah.
said, because I tend to look more at how I do at the end of the year because I'm not a short-term trader. So if I was a short-term trader, I would be much more dialed into, how am I doing on a daily basis? How am I doing on a weekly basis? But because of my time frame, I held Nvidia for 2 years, and I think I made, I don't know, 200 or 300%
Yeah.
overall in the trade. But by the same token, I took a pretty big drawdown from, the peak was 152.
Yeah.
I sold most of my Nvidia in the 119 to 130 range, but I held some of it down to under $100. So because I'm a trend follower, and what you'll see with a lot of trend followers is they will go through some steep drawdowns at times. But I'm,
When the trend changes. When the trend
exactly
changes.
right. Yeah, I mean, if you're a long-term trend follower and you're holding a stock like Nvidia for 2 years, you're not going to get out at the top. Maybe you get lucky and you scale a little bit. I tend to scale in and out of my positions. I don't go, I rarely go all in and all out. I tend to, move in smaller increments. But yeah, if you're a trend follower, there's been some big drawdowns in some of these positions, but there's been some nice winners. The gold miners have been big. But
Yes.
I'm confident that by the end of the year, things will be where I want them to be.
Okay. Well, good to have confidence and good to have stops.
Yeah, stops are key, and it's anything. I look at trading and portfolio management. It's a lot like a football game. You're not going to complete every pass.
Right.
Every so often, you're going to fumble. You're going to get sacked. But at the end of the game, you want to win the game, and that's what I look at. So I look at the course of the whole year, and I just
Okay.
know that in a big drawdown like we've had, anyone who hasn't had a drawdown generally must have, I would expect they'd have a very short-term time frame, and that's fine too.
All right. Well, here's the $1 million question. Was that it at 4,800? And we're just going through a healing process after being through a car wreck and can generate another rally that could take us to new all-time highs, or has the bear market begun?
See, it's a good question. I don't know the answer, but I'll tell you this. I look at it two different ways. From a technical perspective, if you look at this big green bar where
Yeah.
I've got my crosshairs,
Yes.
from a technical perspective, that was the highest volume week in the S&P 500 in 14 years.
Yeah.
Not in the SPY ETF.
Capitulation.
The index in the SPX itself, that was the highest volume week in 14 years, and there was a big, massive selling flush and reversal. So, from a technical perspective, many bear markets have ended like that. High
Right.
volume, selling flush and reversal, clears out the stops,
Breath
shakes
thrust.
yeah,
There was a
exactly.
big breath
Everything.
thrust. Yeah. You
Everything.
got,
So from a technical perspective, that's how most bear markets end. The problem is we're in a cycle right now where there's no real historical perspective. There's no blueprint. We're going into possibly, this global trade. The media calls it a global trade war. We can call it tariff negotiations, whatever we want to call it. We're in uncharted waters right now where it's basically, the US negotiating versus the rest of the world. And the challenge is you've got higher than forecast inflation. The inflation is still above the Fed target. So you don't have the Fed as a backstop right now that's willing to run in and cushion the blow. So I don't know the answer. Technically, that's how most bear markets have ended, but we just don't know where we're at. We don't know what's going to happen with earnings. I've got over 20% cash, which is a lot for me. I've got some triple Q puts in case the bottom comes out there. So I don't have the answer, and I'm just, it's the market to me, it's a more vulnerable index when you're trading underneath the 200-day. You're underneath the 50-day. We can't even
yeah.
get over the 20-day right yet. So I'm staying very defensive. I've got, obviously I've got positions, but I'm pretty defensive right now.
Okay. All right. So we need that close back over, that's the spider on the futures 5,500. So
Yeah,
it's around the
exactly
same.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we
Yeah.
need over 5,500. We need to get over that 20-day. The fact that we can't get over the 20-day yet, that says that the downtrend is still pretty strong, but it
Yeah.
will take a lot, I think. Here's what you're looking at. That 48.35 low on SPX that we hit like 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
that was negative, the maximum pessimism. So I've got to tell you,
Okay.
that Sunday night when the futures were down 5%, that was the most pessimistic that I've personally been since 2008. And I was on my members website and I told, people, I said, listen, in the worst case scenario, you're probably looking at 4,000 to 4,200 on SPX. Now, we got a little bit lucky. The 90-day tariff pause news came out, and at least that took I think the worst case scenario off the table. But we just don't know. We don't know how these tech earnings are going to go this week, and I think you've got to stay defensive. But there's always, things that are working.
Yeah. So let's go there, Larry. What's working in this environment? We know the miners have. I
We
know
know
you're going to
about
go there.
gold. We know about gold miners. And Dale, I've got to tell you, man, I booked some gains in gold and GDX, maybe 5% lower than because my chart said they were extended. This gap up right here, I think it was this gap. I booked some gains. I'm still holding most of the positions, but I dialed back like 50 basis points from each position, but they keep going. And I think, what the bus driver is the US dollar. And I'm not an expert on the dollar. I know that you are, and your team is, but I know how to read charts. And, it's just been in a breakdown downtrend, just
Well, you
lost.
could overlay that on the cues and they'd be identical.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was on TV the other day and what I told the host is I think that the cues, what I think you've got going on right now, and I could be wrong, but we all have a premise that we work from. So I think that you've got a lot of foreign investors that are bringing their money back home
Yeah.
because of what's happening with this entire tariff news cycle. And I think that the triple Qs and, Apple, Facebook, those stocks, I think that's where a lot of big foreign money just parked their money for the US stock market. And I think that's why you're seeing, because
Luke Roman said it was the Chinese. And when we started the tariffs, we were telling them we don't want your money. And
yeah,
they
could be. Could be,
started
and it could be
liquidating.
anyway. The world's a big place. Japan's got a lot of money here. Europe's got a lot of money here. But what you're seeing is that these Mag 7 stocks, they're underperforming the index, and they're even underperforming. If you look in tech, there's a lot of, very good charts that have held up much better. Palantir's up 22%, Apple's down, 20% or so. Netflix is a very good chart. That
Looks
really
like
hasn't.
it's going to new highs,
Yeah,
Netflix.
yeah. So what I think you're seeing with these
Uh,
Mag 7 stocks is I think that there was a lot of foreign money, and it could be US money too. But I think they're just taking their money out of the US markets, and you're seeing that in the Mag 7.
any interest in oil? I bought oil on the crash day,
I
and
don't
I'm
I don't, because I'm a trend follower, but you and I, keep in mind, you and I trade pretty much different time frames, and I think you do a lot of mean reversion trades. And you could be right because it's gotten blown out. I mean, crude's gotten blown out, Chevron, those energy stocks. And for a mean reversion trade, it could definitely work. For a trend follower, though, there's nothing there.
okay. All right, and where are you at on rates? Like TLT, looks like under 85, it's a disaster, but it keeps trying to hold it. Is there a
Yeah,
bond rally
TLT is
coming?
trying to hold. I've got a small position in TLT. I'm underwater in it right now, and where they got me with TLT was this move right here,
Yeah,
where it started to come over the 200-day moving
yeah,
average.
and that was a Friday.
Yeah, I think it might have been, and then we came
Yeah,
out with with the tariff
yeah.
announcements, and they were much higher than we expected. So the problem, TLT's got two problems. So if you expect an economic slowdown, and here's what I'll tell you, the stock charts are pricing in a pretty big economic slowdown. The bond charts are not, and I think the reason is you've got inflation concerns
Supply.
from tariffs, and you got a ton of supply. I still think foreigners are dumping treasuries. So I'm hoping they don't find my stop here. But bond yields right now, the trend for bond yields is up.
Okay,
I'll tell you
I'm
this
with you.
though, there's places to make money, you know, in
Biotechs.
in the stock market. About 30% of the S&P 500 is up year to date, and I just did a scan
Are they
before we
foreign
got on.
companies?
What's
Foreign
that?
company? Are they foreign companies like this?
No, it's defensive stock. So
Okay,
I've got a recent buy in BTI. It's got a 8%, 8 forward PE is 8. It's got a 7% dividend. I've had Altria for a while. Same thing. That's a nice uptrend. But what's working?
did you talk to Sir James Goldsmith before you bought Bat?
I wasn't able to get a hold of him.
You know who he is, right?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
That's probably why I couldn't
He
get a
he
hold of him.
started the company. Anyway, I read a
Yeah,
book about him. He
you know,
lost his
to
hair. Huh?
tobacco stocks, and this is Kroger. It's a supermarket stock. It's up 18% year to date, 14 times PE. But you see, here's what's happening. You see these uptrends, right?
Yeah,
So fund managers, according to the Merrill Lynch Global Fund Manager Survey, they're still only about 5% cash. So, a lot of fund managers have to
just
stay
rotated.
mostly fully invested.
Yeah.
They can't go to 50% cash and things like that. So they're moving into, defensive stocks. And that's why I say that if you look at the stock market, where you've got supermarket stocks up 18% year to date, and you've got the semis down 21% year to date, the stock market is forecasting, whether it's a slowdown or a recession, we don't know. And we just have to see,
That's a good looking chart where you could be wrong under what 160. But you know, to me, it looks like it could happen quick. If we're going to get a rally, it's going to be something that comes out. I don't think it's going to be a grinder. I think that they could, there's so much bearishness, and people would have to come back in after liquidating that there
yeah.
could be a buying panic being set
Well,
up
we
here.
saw that 2 Wednesdays ago when the Nasdaq
Y-
was up, what was it, 12%?
Yeah,
So you could
yeah,
get it, but still, you see what I do is, let's say there is a buying panic for whatever reason, right? Maybe we get a headline, maybe we get I would still rather own a stock like Palantir, which
yeah.
did not get, completely blown out. I would much rather own a stock like that or own a stock like Netflix if there is a buying panic. These stocks that held up much better, they've got a lot less work to do to break out to new, even a stock like
Were
CrowdStrike.
were there
Something,
many? Were there no? Okay, that's a better example. It held the low.
yeah.
Did you screen it for stocks that did not make new low on the crash day, as being, relative strength leaders to look at? Because
Yes.
they were
Yeah.
not a they held they held prior lows during the crash. That
Yeah,
was that
and the first screen that I run, so the first screen I run is any stock that's trading over, the 50 and the 200-day moving
right,
average. There
right,
hasn't been too many though.
right.
So
I'm sure.
so I have to dial my screener back to anything that's trading over the 200-day. But obviously anything that's trading higher scores better. Bitcoin looks like it's ready to break out.
Yeah, we were talking about that this morning. It really held up like a champ
Yeah,
on a
Bitcoin
relative
looks like
strength.
it
Yeah,
needs over, if it clears 90,000, 90,000
yeah,
is the big number. If it clears 90, but the thing I like about Bitcoin is it's held up much better. You see,
yeah,
Bitcoin made the low right after that tariff news,
right.
but since then it's money's been moving there, and maybe money that's moving out of the U.S. is going into Bitcoin. I don't know, but it's an improving chart.
Well, a crashing dollar, an alternative currency,
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense, right?
absolutely.
Okay. Best idea, Larry, going forward for maybe like a few month hold that you like.
I'll tell you, Dale, we get a headline at lunchtime today and everything can
Yeah,
get turned upside down. But, from a trend perspective, as far as all the markets we're talking about right now,
yeah.
gold is the strongest, but I'm concerned,
Oh,
like everybody else, that it's gone
crowded.
parabolic.
Well, they
So
say it's the most crowded trade since Nvidia.
yeah, it's hard to really put a lot of money into gold where it is.
Congratulations on being able to sit.
Yeah, thank you.
I owe it. It's so tempting when something goes parabolic or it's been uptrending before it goes parabolic to book it and
Yeah.
then watch the windfall
Yeah,
without
this
you.
this has been a nice one. This is I took about 20% gains in here. I'm still holding most of it, but I sold it a little bit lower, but that's okay. Listen, it's rare you're going to buy the exact bottom and sell the
Yeah.
exact top. If I can
You know,
make
if you notice the shares are weaker than the what the physical did. I mean, just the charts
always, yeah,
always.
it's
Okay, there you go.
been like that for now. It could catch up. Like GDX is not as parabolic as gold has been, but I would expect if gold, maybe it is
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
But
it is now.
I like the trend on Bitcoin right now,
Yeah.
as far as a big market. And then
Okay.
everything else, Dale, it's just too hard, I think, to forecast, the next couple weeks. But I would say, and what I've been telling, my subscribers is just stay defensive, hold more cash, move really small, don't try to be a hero with anything, and just expect, 2 to 3% ranges at any time.
Okay, so you could tell that Larry is risk aware. He had stops, he had a drawdown. I think a lot of people be happy with only a 10% drawdown right now.
Yeah, it's probably closer to 12 to 15. I've got to tell you, I don't micromanage and measure my drawdowns like I said because I'm not a
Well,
short-term trader and I don't I'm not managing other people's
look,
money. But
Larry,
what
how
I
much were you up last year? Let's
30
really put it. Huh?
Yeah, I was up 36%
Okay.
without cash management and 31% with, because I had a little extra cash. So I run two portfolios on the members website and I'll
Yeah.
post one, all in, fully invested all the time, and one, where we've got some cash management. But 31 to 36% on the posted portfolio last year.
Okay. So you gave back some profits.
Yeah, it's
And
going to
and, and
happen
you know,
though.
I kind of think that disclaimers should be the opposite of what they are. They say that past performance is not indicative of future results. I believe past performance is indicative of future results.
Yeah, it usually is.
Don't
And
you?
and
I
like
mean,
Well, it's like you said, that the key thing that I'm trying not to do right now is I'm trying to not get blown out and
yeah,
not lose a lot of money because,
yeah,
if you underperform one year or whatever, it's okay. But the thing that's not acceptable to me is to lose a lot of money.
yeah,
So where I got to on my drawdown when I look at the account, it's about as far down as I want to go. So,
yeah,
like I said, I've got over 20% in cash. I've got some put. So, listen, on a big rally, right? On these big rally days, like when the S&P was up 9%, my
yeah,
account was up about 4.5%. So on the big days right now, I'm going to underperform.
right,
On the down days, I'm doing great. You know what I mean? So really
yeah,
just what I'm trying to do right now, you've got to decide, do you want to be a hero or do you want to be here in 6 months? And I,
yeah,
I want to be here in 6 years. So where I'm at right now is just don't lose a lot of money, get through this very difficult period. And then, if the S&P gets back up here and everything is a green light and we can go crazy and put it all in micro strategy, then we'll go from there. But,
yeah.
right now for me, this is the type of a market. Don't lose a lot of money and then figure everything else from there.
A pro, Larry Tentarelli. Larry, you want to show your website? You have any deals going on
Yeah, you
for
can
your?
you can find me on Twitter. It's at Blue Chip Daily. And I've been on there for a while. I post quite a bit. You can find me on the website. It's bluechipdaily.com. We've got a 30-day free trial. People can, join for free for 30 days. If you like it, you can, stay on. And if you don't, at least you know what we're doing. But it's been a pretty good year. I've got to say, I've gotten a lot of great feedback from subscribers, and they said, thank you. I'm still in the game, and
Yeah,
thank you. Because listen, me, I was the NVIDIA bull. I was the NVIDIA poster child, for 2 years. But if you look on my Twitter feed, I started to go cold on all these AI stocks when that DeepSeek news came out in January,
yeah. I
and
remember. I was in puts, in Nvidia
yeah,
puts that day.
yeah,
Yeah,
and once that happened, once that DeepSeek news came out in January, I got stopped out of a ton of, AI stocks. A lot of them were profitable, a lot of them were losers. But Dale, I sold stuff on the members website that since I've sold it, it's down 50%, 60%. We sold,
yeah.
and sometimes, like you said, knowing what to sell. I think I sold this on the members website at 120 bucks and
Yeah,
it's 55 right now. So, at
yeah,
some point you have to know when to sell
yeah,
stuff and when to stop buying stuff.
yeah. And Larry, you pulled the plug on stuff that could hurt you.
Yeah.
So good job. I was looking forward to talking to you about it because I know your investing style, and good job is what I would say.
Hey man, we're
And
we're Dale, we're still here and just,
yeah,
sitting tight and waiting. This market could turn tomorrow. It could take 6 months. Nobody knows. But
how
for
about
now,
seven? How about 7K by the end of August in S&Ps
7K for the S&P 500.
by August?
I will send you a Rolex watch. Got to be August of
Uh,
this year. It can't be August in 20.
okay, August of this year.
August of this year. All right. I better start looking for some Rolexes just in case.
All right, man. And no, none of those fakes either. No
Oh, well,
bogeys.
that's a different story.
Larry Tentarelli, great talking to you.
Dale, you
Yeah,
too.
yeah, Larry likes Bitcoin related stocks here, and the charts are looking pretty good.
Just keep
And
your seatbelt on with these
yeah,
Bitcoin stocks. But yeah,
yeah,
micro strategy looks like it could be ready to go.
yeah. So there you go. Options, limit risk on things like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Larry. Find Larry at Blue Chip Daily on X and check him out. I've been talking to Larry for years, and what I like about Larry is he's not a revisionist. When he's wrong, he says he is. And if you're following people that never say they're wrong, run. And that's a wrap for me. Remember, don't just count your shares, count your blessings. And Larry, appreciate you being here, my trading warrior brother. And good hunting, everyone, on Turnaround Tuesday. And let's have a pop in the dollar. And I'll talk to everyone tomorrow. Adios. Join the team in 17 minutes on the morning edge. Thank you, Larry. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Dale, thank you. Thank you for having me on, and I'll talk to you the next time.
All right, buddy. I'll send you a DM.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Adios, everyone. Good hunting.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with ForexAnalytix. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.